did it take for Hong Kong's credibility and inflows to return once the convertibility was guaranteed under the format of the currency board?
Well, once the new exchange rate was fixed in October 1983, stability returned within a few weeks, very quickly. Almost immediately, two things happened. First, money which had been moved abroad during the crisis, during the period when the currency was tumbling, started to return to Hong Kong. Second, investors, seeing that Hong Kong dollar interest rates were higher than US dollar interest rates, and now the exchange rate was fixed, moved capital into Hong Kong to take advantage of the higher rates, gradually pushing down local interest rates. Monetary tightness eased dramatically, and inflation came down at the same time.
Okay.
The same thing would happen in Lebanon.
Did it go smoothly? Did you encounter any problems as it went up and running?
Yeah, it worked pretty much from the day it was implemented. After all, the mechanism was not entirely new. Britain had used sterling-based currency board systems in most of its colonies in the first half of the 20th century, in places like the Caribbean islands, in Nigeria, East Africa, and Hong Kong itself from 1935 to 1972. And none of these had ever failed. However, in 1983, I'd say there were two kinds of problems to be overcome in Hong Kong. The first was, and this was a big problem for me, there was widespread opposition to a currency board from academics, from bankers, from government officials in Hong Kong, and even from organizations like the IMF. I think in recent years, the IMF has come to understand a currency board, but for years they were antagonistic to currency boards. However, I secured very strong endorsements from key economists. One was Milton Friedman, who was a personal friend. Another was Alan Walters, who was the economic advisor to Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister of the UK, and Charles Goodhart, a very distinguished economist from the Bank of England. The three of them agreed that a fixed exchange rate system was best for a small, open economy like Hong Kong, and that the currency board mechanism was the strongest type of fixed exchange rate. So that was one problem, but we overcame that, the opposition. The second was, of course, the system has had to deal with numerous disruptions and disturbances in international financial markets, such as the Tiananmen Square demonstrations in Beijing in 1989, the Asian financial crisis in 1997-98, the outbreak of SARS, the respiratory disease in 2003, the global financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, and of course, most recently, the COVID pandemic. So the system has been tested by all these types of episodes. Now, usually that required some degree of interest rate and asset price adjustment. But the exchange rate has remained unchanged now for 42 years.
Yeah.
Inflation has remained low, and the economy has continued to grow. So I see no reason why that shouldn't work in Lebanon.
How is the system operating today? By the sounds of it, it's still operating very smoothly. How long do you think it's going to last for?
Yeah, well, it's very robust. And having overcome all these threats and crises and various speculative attacks since 1983, it's in good shape. At the same time, Hong Kong has been able to become the major international financial center of Asia, handling huge inflows and outflows on a daily basis. In my view, the system can last indefinitely as long as the US dollar continues to be a stable anchor. So I see no reason why Lebanon, if it adopts a currency board system, should not once again perform a similar role as a financial center in the Middle East.